Good afternoon, dear viewers. Today we are discussing Turkey, Turkish citizenship, and investments in Turkey. And especially for you, we've prepared a unique offer that includes a buyback option for Turkish citizenship, which we'll talk about a little later. Joining us today is Julia Provalina, a representative of the developer Dunya Shakir, one of the largest companies in Istanbul. Let's get started. Speaking about Turkish citizenship, today, for the Russian-speaking audience, this is probably the most optimal and the best program compared to other offers on the market. Why? Because this is a program that grants citizenship to the entire family, including children under 18 and spouses, and it is inheritable. In other words, the passport can be passed on. An important point is that to obtain citizenship, you need to hold the real estate property or a bank deposit for 3 years. After 3 years, you can sell the property or asset, fully recover your investment, and the passport will remain with you and your family. This is a very important factor because in Europe, it's usually 5 years. And unfortunately, we don't see such programs specifically for citizens. The passport also allows you to obtain a visa to the United States of America through company registration. As you can see, there are various options available for obtaining Turkish citizenship. These include investments in real estate, bank deposits, and investments in company capital. But probably among all of them, some are more optimal. From an investment perspective, real estate is the most attractive because it is a real sector. For example, deposits are tied to converting your investments into lira. The lira is not the most stable currency, so real estate is something that always holds its value, is always in demand, and can also provide additional income by renting out apartments, flats, or studios. We are observing, if we talk about statistics, we are seeing a steady increase in the price per square meter in real estate prices in Turkey. That's about 12% per year for 2023 to 2024, and that's in dollars. Of course, the greatest growth is observed in major cities such as Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. And you can see the price per square meter. As of today, it still remains one of the lowest prices per square meter when compared to major European cities and Russian metropolises. For this significant amount, as Julia will meticulously explain a little bit later on, the discerning buyer truly gets much, much more than just bare, unadorned walls. This attractive price comprehensively includes a great many different and valuable benefits specifically for the fortunate buyer. Furthermore, Turkey consistently remains a remarkably interesting and captivating country from a comprehensive tourism perspective, offering diverse experiences. And after the pandemic years, tourism is recovering and actively increasing its volume. Turkey is among the top countries in terms of tourist flow overall. We are seeing a huge number of tourists, especially in Istanbul. Istanbul is in fact the city of year-round tourism. And this is an important point when it comes to renting out apartments or flats. Tourists need somewhere to stay. We are also seeing about a 12% growth. This is the forecast for 2025 regarding tourism's share in the country's GDP. And overall, Turkey's GDP growth is higher than the global average. That's why we can say that the Turkish economy is quite strong and is actively developing and continues to develop rapidly. Now I'll hand it over to Julia. Tell us about yourself and your company.
Thank you. Our company is engaged in the construction of residential real estate, specifically in the Istanbul market. Why did we choose the capital? I think it's clear from what you said earlier about the economy and price growth, specifically in capitals, because it's the most organized market and because we say that Turkey is undoubtedly a potentially interesting market for real estate investment. Although many buyers or agents sometimes argue with this, nevertheless, it is a very ancient market. Basically, it is oriented towards trade, so everything that is property is, in principle, unshakable within the country. And next, probably a very important point. It should also be noted that investment as a way of investing in real estate is one of the most popular among, in general, the country's residents. Here, perhaps it should also be mentioned that just to understand why Turkey is still interesting and attractive, I think our viewers need to be immersed a bit more. It's important to understand the statistics. Foreign demand within the real estate market accounts for no more than 2%. In 2022, there was a fluctuation when foreign demand exceeded 3%, and of course Russians were in first place, buying up everything. It seemed to us that only Russians were buying up Turkey, but objectively it's 2%. 98% are buyers who are local residents. And for Turks, real estate serves as a protective mechanism. This is due to the fact that the stock market is underdeveloped, other investment instruments are not very advanced, inflation is high, and that's why people preserve and grow their money specifically through real estate. And the country is huge, 80 million people. So we understand that in such a large country, especially in cities, in capital cities, because, okay, Istanbul is not the official capital, but nevertheless it is. It's the tourist capital, the historical capital, it's always popular, and accordingly, price growth is always observed. And as for bubbles there, the only issues that might arise are with developers. And maybe some other problems, but not that kind of bubble. That's why real estate is very popular both among investors and among residents who want to have comfortable living conditions. That's why, in fact, our offer today will be relevant for our investors, because our client is someone who wants a passport, one of the most straightforward passports. I think Vladimir explained this in great detail here. And it's straightforward, it's inheritable, it's legitimate, and you can have it together with a Russian passport. Refundable. Now we'll talk about the investment. As for our developer, originally, it was an engineering company that specialized in engineering technologies for development projects. And 20 years ago, they started moving into development. Several projects have been completed in Istanbul. And now, the project being developed in the Asian part, Maltepe, is located there. It's a flat area of Istanbul, a pleasant place to live. That's because all self-respecting Turks who have achieved success in life, so to speak, settle in the Asian part. If anyone thinks that the European side with the Blue Mosque is the popular one, that's not the case. It's a mistake. On the European side, we mostly see tourists. Migrant workers as well. And in fact, we don't often encounter real Turks there.
It should be said that it's popular among tourists, and often those who come to Istanbul stay on the European side. But it's the local population that's important. And for us, that's crucial, because when it comes to reselling a property, it's most likely going to be to locals, that is, Turkish citizens. Locals tend to prefer the Asian side. Here, people often say that Europe is like Asia, and Asia is like Europe. The Asian side is actually more European, calmer, with wider streets, more spacious, probably more pleasant for year-round living, for everyday life.
And also for families, including mine, because I have 2 children and I never even considered living on the European side with kids. Living in the European part is simply physically impossible. If you have a child in a stroller, you basically can't get around anywhere. On the Asian side, you're on flat land, on the coast of the Sea of Marmara, with good air. And honestly, if you haven't been, I strongly recommend taking the ferry, crossing over to the Asian side and strolling along Baghdad Street. It's a special pleasure. For me personally, Baghdad Street somewhat reminds me of the Champs-Élysées. Well, that's just my association. In fact, some people even agree with that. Here we can see our previous project, which was sold very successfully. It was completed in 2023. Everything was completely sold out, and now there's a management company there that helps with renting out the units. So in our future project, we expect to have the same arrangement. The current project is of a higher class, I should say, because the project we see here in Kartal, in the Kartal district, also on the Asian side, was implemented and is a taller building. This is what we would call economy comfort class in our terms. If we talk about the project in Maltepe, that's business class. So here too, well, probably if we're talking to buyers who are familiar with the Moscow market, of course you could already call this premium class, but we use the standard terminology. This is business class, but it's the kind of business class that's still hard to find even in Moscow. Accordingly, here you can see the expected yield rates, and we back them up with the ruble, which we guarantee. 7%, I'll talk more about this later. The project is large scale. More than 800 apartments will be built here, essentially 2 mini neighborhoods, accordingly with full infrastructure. This includes swimming pools, recreation areas, and children's zones. There will also be complete infrastructure inside. This is not just about management and assistance, for example, with renting out to future buyers or owners, but also various rooms for rent, like event spaces, for example. Or if you are a resident, well, again, when we say you as a resident, it could mean you as a resident or your future client as a resident and you as an investor, meaning the person you will later resell to. Accordingly, if a resident is expecting guests, they will be able to book rooms for their out-of-town guests so they can stay overnight when visiting. And all sorts of other rooms. Karaoke rooms for children's parties. All of this will be available. Well, as for fitness, of course, I don't think it's even worth mentioning, because basically anyone familiar with the Turkish market knows that in new projects with lots of amenities, all the infrastructure is there and a pool inside is a must. Fitness is just, well, a must-have really, just the bare minimum required. And then it all depends on what else people can come up with. Here, an extensive infrastructure is planned, a city within a city. As for the location, we've already mentioned that it's on the Asian side. Here you can actually see a bit of the sea. The map is zoomed in quite closely for us. If we're talking about measuring with a ruler, the Sea of Marmara is about 1 kilometer away from us. And from certain apartments, there will be a beautiful view. Later on, we'll have photos where you can see what the view will be like. And in general, even having an apartment a bit farther away but with a view of the Sea of Marmara is very nice. The views are beautiful, and on top of that, it's a sunset-facing side. So in that regard, it's very attractive, and of course that also increases its investment appeal. Nearby we have IKEA, a huge shopping center. It's located right across the road. This is the E5 highway here. Yes, the one that goes to Sabiha Airport. The reason we're talking about this in such detail is because Sabiha is the second airport. Not the main international one, but it is international and very popular among local residents as well, since there are also shuttle buses departing from there. To Bodrum, Antalya, Alanya, and all the coastal cities you can travel to just to relax by the sea. These are all low-cost carriers, with flights departing almost every hour or two, depending on the season and so on. And by car, it takes about 15 minutes, maybe even 10, so it's close. You can drive or you can take the metro and ride a few stops. So in this regard, the transportation is also good. I should probably also add, yes, that about the Asian side. This is where the best universities in Istanbul are located. That's why, in fact, well-off Turks try to move to the Asian side. And this is also where financial centers from Ankara are being relocated. It's huge and it's also not far from here. That's why it's a great place to live. And it's a comfortable place. It's probably the equivalent of Moscow City, right? The most important thing is that we have a metro station here. You step out in 2 minutes, and you practically end up right at this station, which is very important for any large metropolis that suffers from traffic, of course. And you also have very convenient access to the highway. This is valued and important in Istanbul because there are many narrow streets in these old neighborhoods. Usually it takes some time to get to the highway, but here you immediately find yourself on a major thoroughfare, one of the 2 largest transport arteries in Istanbul. You have a metro station. Within 2 minutes on foot, you leave the project and immediately enter the metro. At the same time, the district itself, yes, after Kadıköy, this is the second district from the Bosphorus, so by Istanbul standards, it's absolutely not far from the center. And the district itself is very pleasant. There's a large park on the waterfront itself, and Baghdad Street, which you mentioned earlier. So in fact, the location is probably one of the best, yes, out of what is available now. Basically, that you can find in Istanbul. Well, everyone who visits ends up satisfied. That is, everyone says that yes, the location is simply wonderful. It's also worth noting that we're located near the E5 highway, but we're not directly on it. We're situated across a small road on a hill, so there won't be any direct interaction with the highway. It's isolated. Plus, the buildings themselves are designed in such a way that the residential apartments don't face the highway either. Let's put it that way. So there won't be any extra noise. Here we have images of what the interior view will look like in the future. And you can also see here how the view of the Sea of Marmara will open up. Those are the Princess Islands. That's exactly them. And right here, if you go towards the road, there will be a ferry you can take to get there. As for the finishing, we deliver the apartments fully finished. Here are some examples. There are several types available. Full finishing and kitchen furniture are included, which is also quite rare. In addition to the furniture, there are also appliances. That includes a refrigerator and a dishwasher. All the appliances are included. As an investor, for example, when you purchase this apartment, you no longer have to worry about furnishing it for resale or rental. A parking space is also included,
as well as a storage unit. The price, which is probably already traditional for Turkey, includes, for example, if you compare it to Moscow, where in many projects you have to pay separately for a parking space. In Turkey, it is always included in the price and you don't need to spend extra money to purchase a parking space.
We will also separately highlight what is included in our price. Accordingly, yes, the bathroom is fully finished. All the finishing and furnishing, this is all included in the price of the future apartment. These are the views from apartments that have already been purchased.
This is an actual photo, a real photo from the site, from the apartments, showing the view, what you can buy right now, with a view of the Princess Islands.
Here we took photos for a client because he was making a remote purchase. Accordingly, he just wanted to see what his apartment would actually look like, and his building had already been constructed. We took these photos a year ago. So this is a real photo showing how everything looks for buyers, because in front of us there isn't anything tall, just a low-rise building. So if we take this central building, you can enjoy views like these. Accordingly, of course, the upside for such apartments is expected to be better than for those with only partial views.
And in the evening, at night, it's beautiful to look not just at the Black Sea, but at the sea with all the lights. Basically, the islands aren't illuminated, but people live there too, and the beautiful lights on the sea actually look really stunning. This is probably one of the best views in Istanbul that I've ever had the chance to visit or see.
Well, as a resident of this area, I can confirm that 100%. As for the construction progress, the completion is scheduled for the middle of 2026. All the buildings are already up now because this is what we have here. This photo is from June. So all the buildings are standing. Now we're moving on to the finishing stage. Here's the highway, then there's a park, and then a small road beyond that. And all of this is still on an elevation. So for example, if we look in real time, say with a client, we can do a Zoom call from the sales office. The sales office is right here. You see it's a little building between the main road and the small highway. You can even spin it around.
On the front line, yes.
Yes, the sales office, right? And from here, so this highway will be down below because this park area is on a slope. We're located a bit off to the side, so to speak. And you can also see the mountains in the background. All in all, it's a beautiful place. Moreover, I should probably also mention the location. If we head not towards the city, but in the opposite direction, then in about 35 minutes, we'll reach the Black Sea. To the north, the Black Sea coast. And these are incredibly beautiful places with gorgeous beaches. That's just my personal opinion because, I don't know, it's incredible. And you can do this all year round, even in winter. So both in winter and summer, it's wonderful there. In summer, there are a lot of people at the beach, and in winter, it's just perfect for a walk along the coast. And all of this is just, well, 35 minutes and you're at the sea. It's
a large forest area in the north of Istanbul, actually, on both the Asian and European sides. We have a vast forest area stretching all the way to the Black Sea. Yes, absolutely right. There are many hiking trails there. All right, let's move on to investments then.
Yes, so what is our proposal about? We, as a developer, are very thoughtful and client-oriented. So when we sat down to look at who our clients are, we realized that these are people who, for one reason or another, need a passport. As a rule, these are not people who need a passport just for fun. They need a passport. Of course, that happens, but it's rare. And now, it's a time when more and more people need it. So, for those who need a passport, but these are thoughtful people. Our clients are literally 100 out of 100. They are thoughtful people who have a certain skepticism. They come and say, what about inflation? I'm worried. What if I can't sell? Yes, but how will I do it? And then sell in 3 years, exit this investment, and so on and so forth. But since we are well versed in the market and understand it deeply, and we also have our own financial models with project financing prices, we calculated and set aside half an apartment. It's not all the apartments. It's important to clarify that there's no craziness like offering all apartments with a buyback option. It's a very small share of apartments, and they're offered only to foreigners. For Turkish citizens, this option doesn't exist. Turkish citizens can only make a final purchase. They don't need it, of course, but either they understand and sense the market well and don't require a buyback guarantee. Those who do this professionally, who invest in the real estate market, well, just like us actually. No one gives us such guarantees on the market either. But foreigners do need this guarantee, and that's why we calculated and realized that we can offer our clients, in this case we're talking about Russian clients, a buyback option. At 7% per annum, specifically in dollars, which is fixed in dollars. Accordingly, along with the purchase and sale agreement, we offer a buyback agreement, an option contract, where the purchase price will be clearly stated in black and white and then calculated cumulatively. The final price after 3 years is 22.5%, at which the developer undertakes to buy back the apartment from you. But it's important to understand here that the buyback, the developer is obligated to do so if you wish. So after owning the apartment for 2.5 years, when you realize that, with 6 months left until the end of the buyback period, the client makes a decision for themselves, whether they want to keep it or whether they want to still take advantage of this buyback right. And they submit an application indicating which choice they've made. Accordingly, the developer, of course, has no choice. They accept whichever option you choose. 7% annual interest in dollars is returned to the client. Here, the figure of 400,000 is given for the sake of a simple calculation. 400,000 is the amount required in the appraisal in order to obtain the passport. So when buying for 400,000, the client gets back $490,000 after 3 years. But if he changes his mind, he can keep it for himself, rent it out through a management company, or come and live in it himself. Or you might realize that the market is such that you can sell it for 600, which most likely is a reasonable estimate. These apartments will probably be worth around 600 to 620,000. Accordingly, because these will already be finished, it will be a fully functioning complex with all the perks that will be organized for the residents. So on the secondary market, of course, for local residents who want to buy and move in right away, this is quite a sought-after option. Plus, it will already be occupied and sold out. Just for reference, this is a 1+1. We have already sold out of all of them. At the moment, about 80% have been sold. We still have about 100 to 120 apartments left in stock. So, Accordingly, this option is available and it should remain until the end of construction.
So, to sum up once again, in 3 years, you fully recoup your investment. The minimum threshold for citizenship is $400,000. You receive a 22.5% income in dollars, meaning additional capital appreciation of your apartment is guaranteed by the developer and you get a Turkish passport. So these three components, full return on investment, income, and the passport, remain with you after 3 years. At the present moment, there are absolutely no similar offers available on the entire market, or at the very least, we are genuinely not aware of any such propositions. That is precisely why this particular offer is truly and genuinely unique, and we are very eager to share this exceptional and valuable option with all of our esteemed clients and, of course, our loyal viewers.
I have heard about similar offers, but I know of them specifically on the coastal market, in the coastal areas. And here it's important to understand a subtle point. Citizenship is granted not based on the purchase price, but on the value indicated in the appraisal report for the property. And everyone should also understand that buying on the coast is great, but it's simply a different product, it's a different offering, not for a passport. The price, or rather the value that will be indicated in the appraisal, is 2 to 3 times lower than the price in your contract for the purchase and sale for what you bought in Istanbul. In this regard, the market is very regulated, and there was a period in 2022 to 2023 when many people really inflated the sale price, but the appraised value, it was, it was lower, but it wasn't 2 or 3 times lower, it was about 20% lower. Now, these are practically matching figures, and in our case, taking into account what is included in our price, the fact that we are committed to a clean, transparent price, we'll talk about that now. Here it turns out that the appraised value might even be higher if we exclude all the additional expenses that we reimburse to our clients. Accordingly, here are several options for apartments. It's important to understand that Turkish apartment layouts are very spacious, they always are. They don't cut up the space like they do in Moscow now, where apartments are getting smaller and smaller. Here they even managed to fit a 3-room apartment into 50 square meters. The apartments are spacious, usually with a separate kitchen connected to the living room by a balcony. Of course, you can zone the space however you like, but the apartment is always quite pleasant and comfortable to live in. It's all designed for large families. Accordingly, you get a large area, fully furnished and finished. It's a very nice setup. This is a patio. Here, it's probably not the most popular option. Our clients usually say, "Oh no, not the first floor." But for Turks, it's very popular, yes. They love it. But here, of course, we can't force anyone. If you're an investor, you might accept it because it's not like our first floors that open directly onto the street or the yard. This is an internal patio. There are a lot of bonuses and benefits you can take advantage of. So regarding the price, yes, we've moved on to that. Here are some approximate expenses related to obtaining citizenship and a passport. As for our company, the price listed in our price list includes VAT. We have a simplified preferential VAT system, and it also includes the tax and the 4% fee for obtaining the expert assessment. So the client doesn't pay anything extra. None of the other developers cover this, but we do. Additionally, we prepare the complete set of documents required for submitting a passport application. But here, when it comes to legal support, that's a separate question. It's a bit of a mixed issue, yes. I always recommend to everyone, of course, to hire a lawyer so that you have a representative with a power of attorney, so you don't have to travel there yourself, because in any case, you'll still have to go there to sign documents and provide fingerprints. So basically, everything except for giving fingerprints can be delegated. And if you have the opportunity, of course, you should do this because it all affects the processing time.
For our part, our company offers a legal firm that provides full support throughout the citizenship process, opening an account and obtaining a residence permit. All legal matters, complete support. They take care of everything. So here you are fully protected. The lawyers accompany you at every stage, both for the transaction and for citizenship.
Let's also mention, Vladimir, that all contracts for those clients who are not only thoughtful but also skeptical can be notarized. Yes?
That's an important point. For example, regarding the buyback offer, I'll admit I had heard of such things before, but when we, for instance, gave it to the lawyers for review, they confirmed to us that it wasn't a serious document, that you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. But in the case of your project's offer, it's a notarized contract and it has legal force. In other words, it's a completely legitimate, verified document. Yes, I think we've basically covered everything today regarding these points. I invite everyone to subscribe to our channels so you don't miss out on similar interesting offers. We work for you, preparing the most interesting selections and offers available on the market. We provide support in all cities of Turkey we work, but when it comes to citizenship, we definitely recommend Istanbul, because in this city, the cadastral and actual property values usually match. This is important for the citizenship application process. And the demand, as we discussed today, comes mainly from local Turkish citizens. This probably distinguishes Istanbul and Turkey as a whole from the Dubai market, where the main demand comes from foreigners. In Istanbul, about 95 to 98% of the demand comes from the local population. This is important because it will be easier for you to resell the apartment after 3 years of ownership or to make use of it yourself. There is also a buyback program where you can sell the apartment back to the developer. In this case, it is your right, and the developer is obligated to buy the apartment back from you. Julia, thank you very much for your time, for coming to us and telling us about this truly unique offer. I think it will interest many of our viewers because there is no other program like this. It's a very good deal, 7% per year in US dollars, which is higher than the US Federal Reserve rate of 4.5%. So it's much better than dollar deposits in banks, even European ones. That's why this offer is really very interesting. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. We will be happy to consult with everyone, explain everything in detail, show the showroom and show the views. Everything can be done online in real time.
Thank you
Very much for the offer.